Okay, we are joined now by our political editor, Mike Flannery. Mike Flannery, you just told me this is your 25th convention.
25th presidential nominating
I just
convention.
want you to know that as of now, this DNC, the one we're having this week, is the 26th convention
in
that
Chicago.
Illinois in Chicago has held. And you're telling me you've been at 25 of them?
Well,
I did not know this.
It's a little bit, the Venn diagram would be a little bit different. I was just all over the country. My first one was in Detroit back in 1980, where Ronald Reagan was nominated by the Republican Party. And this one would be my 25th. And, you know, if you count Chicago, this is number 26 of the Democratic and Republican conventions.
Which I think a lot of people don't realize. Yes, we have had Republican conventions here.
Oh, Abraham Lincoln in 1860. You can make a case, some historians make the case, that Abraham Lincoln might never have been nominated by the Republicans. There were other serious candidates, including Mr. Seward, who became a member of his cabinet, who might have been the nominee instead of Lincoln, except that it was held here and he had a hometown advantage.
How about that? Yeah, I think a lot of people think, you know, Illinois is a Democratic state. We're holding Republican conventions, but they have been held. I do want to talk to you. Let's compare. Let's compare and contrast here. So 68, everybody always talks about 68, and they, you know, 96, which I was at with you, other stations, but we were there. Much calmer time, and we just had Del Marie Cobb on earlier.
I was watching.
Okay,
yeah.
And she
I've
was
been to many of these with her.
With Del Marie, and she was saying that the biggest scandal at that time was that there was the media tent that blew over because there was a lot of rain. So we are facing a different time, a different climate right now. How do you compare that to where we are today, and what are you expecting as a result?
Well, in 1968, I was in high school watching on TV. As that convention unfolded, what the Walker Commission, headed by future Illinois Governor Dan Walker, called a police riot, you know, that there were parallels. It was a time of war. If you've been watching the live stream and all the coverage here on Fox 32, you've seen the protesters saying that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in Gaza is the Vietnam War of this generation. It is undoubtedly dividing Democrats. And I would say, Sylvia, all you have to do is take a look at Mayor Brandon Johnson's comments to Mother Jones magazine over the weekend, the other day, in which Mayor Johnson said that in his view, the Israeli military action in Gaza is genocidal. It just strikes me as a strangely provocative word to use. It's deeply offensive to many Chicagoans and to many people around the country. I'm not sure it's going to endear him to Kamala Harris or to Joe Biden, but clearly the mayor speaks for a wing of the Democratic Party that you see out there protesting.
And, you know, that is the major protest that we're seeing, the pro-Palestinian protest, right?
Everything else would just be
there are
hardly
others
noticeable
out there, but that is the main one. There has been talks, and, you know, it's skeptical about this for so many people because we've been hearing, oh, maybe we're going to come to some kind of solution, a temporary solution with what's going on in the Middle East. The president is saying he is positive about this, or feeling confident about this, that it could happen. What difference could that make for this week?
Well, it would be if they were to announce some sort of ceasefire and some sort of agreement on the hostages. Unfortunately, there are fewer and fewer every week, it seems, of the hostages who remain alive. Well, it would have a huge impact. I think it would deflate much of the anger that is that we're seeing on the street, and it would certainly be something that both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would be very eager to see.
I want to go back to local politics now because, Mike, this morning there was the Democratic breakfast. Were you there, by the way? Not this time?
I was not.
You were not.
But I know that Mayor Johnson was not there
either. Well, that's
either.
what I wanted to ask you about. So,
and Governor Pritzker was clearly the man in charge.
Okay, so let's talk about that because in '96, the Democratic convention, when it was here, Daley, it was Daley's baby. This one clearly is Governor Pritzker's party. And the fact that Mayor Johnson was not at the breakfast this morning, do we have a split going on here?
There's absolutely a split. There's absolutely a split.
Put it out there on the table for them, Mike.
All right, let's just explain it. No matter what, I'm sure that and as I understand it, the mayor's people are saying, well, he had that briefing he had to attend to. He's also paying attention to the details of preparations for keeping all the delegates safe, and kudos to the mayor for that. But Brandon Johnson was on the payroll of the teachers union for many years. They bankrolled his race for mayor. And Stacey Davis Gates, who's his closest advisor, without a doubt, the president of the teachers union, she and Mayor Johnson have been shooting darts at Governor Pritzker, demanding $1.1 billion in additional funding for the Chicago public schools. Money that the state of Illinois doesn't have, money that's not going to come. And if you consider if the state did this fairly, Sylvia, that $1.1 billion, because Chicago has about 20% of the state's public school kids, there would be a tax increase of $5.5 billion, because it wouldn't be fair just to give Chicago additional school money. You'd have to do it across the state. Are we prepared? The citizens of Illinois voted down overwhelmingly that income tax increase that was on the ballot a few years ago, just like they voted down overwhelmingly last year, last November. In the primary, they voted down the tax that the mayor and the teachers union wanted to push through. Not a lot of public support for that, but there is a huge and growing divide between the mayor and the governor.
Why can't we all just get along? It's a Democratic National Convention. They are Democrats. You think they would be working together on this?
I think we may yet see a kumbaya moment.
Yes.
I remember. Sure. I think it's entirely possible. And I'll tell you this: if there were some kind of agreement in the Middle East about Gaza to take the temperature down, I think that might bring that moment a little bit closer.
It's been very interesting to watch. Now, both of them will get a chance to showcase themselves during the DNC. And Governor Pritzker has been on a national platform for a while now, and especially with the possibility that he could have been the VP pick. But for Brandon Johnson, this is his first time on a national stage.
It is, and he's going to speak. He's going to give a welcoming speech. I'm not sure how many people around the country are going to see it. It'll be on the DNC's live stream. We'll be covering it. But, I think for the average American or the average Democrat who's tuned in and watching this thing, it's more likely that they're going to see Brandon Johnson delivering that speech while he's in the background on some video screen while some other thing is taking place.
Going on, yeah. But Chicago is now on the national stage once again, and it's so important for the city to make sure that it puts its best foot forward. They have been doing everything they possibly can. I mean, we live in a beautiful, clean city anyway, but it's cleaner than ever right now. We have security like we haven't seen since maybe NATO.
Right, right.
So could this be a breakout moment for him, too? Because I think a lot of times when you see events like this, you do see some breakout stars.
Well, possibly. I mean, look, Brandon Johnson could break out. Already, those protesters have embraced him. You saw, Sylvia, some of the protesters there in Union Park calling on politicians, other Democratic politicians around the country, to emulate the mayor in branding the Israelis as genocidal. He's going to be very unpopular with many other Democrats for having said that. But that could be a breakout moment for good and for ill. I think that I think the governor has gotten a lot more exposure than the mayor has in recent days. And I think at the end of it all, we'll have to see what plays out on the streets.
Right, we're going to have to see.
Yeah, I was just on the phone with Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart a few minutes ago, You know, he's one of the agencies that's helping the CPD. If you were to walk around the near north side, the Gold Coast, North Michigan Avenue, where so much of the city's tax revenue comes from, you'd see lots of Cook County Sheriff's Police there. They've kind of taken that zone as well as several others in other parts of town. And, you know, there's a lot riding on this being not
peaceful and safe.
Peaceful, not having another round of destructive looting. You know, fingers crossed, prayers to the heavens that that happens.
Okay, finally, I want to talk about Kamala Harris because that's what this week is all about. Earlier, I was speaking to Del Marie about the fact that she faces a huge hurdle, not only just what's going on in the climate of our country and the world right now, but she is a woman. And not only is she a woman, but she is a black woman who is facing obstacles no other woman has. Hillary Clinton had that issue. A lot of people thought she was going to be the person to break the glass ceiling.
She's going to talk. Hillary's going to talk about that tonight.
She is. Okay. So what do you think is going to have to happen for Kamala Harris for this week for her to get that extra bump? She's already got this high momentum going. What's going to need to be said and done by her and the people who are supporting her?
Well, I will tell you what will harm her.
Okay.
And that's if the streets, in fact, do turn into, if there's a lot of violence, a lot of disruption. And I take us back to 1968, when all the violence on the streets of Chicago, downtown, you know, what helped to divide the country. A few months later, it really helped to elect Richard Nixon. And that debacle, that public relations debacle of the 1968 Democratic Convention, perhaps more than any other single thing beyond the Vietnam War itself, really helped Richard Nixon get elected.
Still talking about it to this
day.
Now, Mike Flannery.
What is she? Your question was a positive one. Shows of unity, praise from across the board. Perhaps politicians like Brandon Johnson not using the word genocidal. You know, a pro tip to you, Mayor. Not a smart move, I don't think, in the context of a Unity Week. You know, that's what she would love to see. Okay, well, you are going to be out at the DNC also doing our coverage, so thank you for taking a minute to come out and saying hi. Always good to see you. We'll talk to you later as well.